I got no problem sharing some of the best things I've learned over the years. And there's a few things. But there's also some things I've made mistakes with. Some huge mistakes that could have killed me, but they didn't. So I'm here to share them with you tonight because it's winter, it's cold, it's a good time to talk. Because I don't want them to kill you either. I'm Gogo for superdukes.com. And let's talk a little bit about when it's a good time to quit. Not entirely, not to give up everything, but sometimes when you're faced with a problem, it's great to never surrender. Other times, it's great to know, get the fuck out. Before we start tonight, I want to share that I designed a way for the OEM steering lock to work with a super clamp. Never before possible, now possible. On new super clamps and even ones that are already out there in the field. Even ones you already bought. Got it all solved. Really excited about it. Now, let's talk about things I'm not so excited about, like making big mistakes that could have killed me, but didn't. Sometimes in racing, in track days, in life, you're going to be faced with situations, problems. And like I said, it's really good. One of my proudest elements of my character is I don't give up. I never surrender. I'm so proud of it. But there are times, they're few and far between, but there are times where I would have been way better off if I gave up. So how do you know? How do you know when to throw in the towel, to come back tomorrow stronger, or just keep pressing through? I can't say that I always get that answer right because I've gotten it wrong a few times. 2 big times that I'm going to tell you about right now. 1, 2005. I had lived in California for 1 year. AMA Superbike is coming to Sears Point. Now, I'm racing a Ducati, 4 Ducati, 2 of them actually, a 749R and a 999R. And I don't mean like they gave me 10% off of retail parts. I mean like they were Ducati's bikes that we had a budget. It was really one of the proudest racing times of my life. And here comes the show, right? The show's coming to town. So I entered the Superbike race. And there I am qualifying with Matt Mladen and Ben Bostrom and Aaron Yates. And I mean, obviously I was outclassed considering those guys, but there's like 2 levels of racing when you're talking about like Superbike races, right? AMA pro level stuff. There's the pros that come in the big rigs, and then there's the privateers. So on this weekend at Sears Point, on basically a stock Ducati 999R, I outqualified all the local hot shoes. Oh, and there was big names here back then. I was like the top privateer. I don't know how it happened, but there's this one really interesting thing that I was doing on the bike that created a great opportunity and created a problem. So this is before, electronic shifts as an auto-blip and all this fancy stuff, which really, really make a bike get around the track quicker. All the gear shifts you have to make, get on the throttle, off the throttle, on the throttle like this, it's just not the most efficient way to shift. So somehow, I'm sure I'm not the only one who figured this out, but I discovered this on my own. The way I used to shift gears on that Ducati to save every millisecond that I could. Again, there was no auto shift, auto blip, any kind of like that. So I would take my foot and weight the shift lever and just hold the throttle wide open. At Sears Point. Sears Point is a very aggressive track. I think I did well at Sears as soon as I got here because I came from Loudon, another very aggressive track. I think I remember reading in the papers back then before I even moved here, everyone said how dangerous Sears was. Well, everyone also said how dangerous Loudon was. So I went from like the worst to the worst. Anyway, there I am going around Sears Point with my foot, weighting the shifter, holding it wide open. And as soon as the bike would hit the rev limiter and hesitate for that second, boop, it would just fall into gear and pow, right in the power again. And it was beautiful. It was efficient. I was riding really well. And on the first lap, good Lord, the bike's not shifting right. It won't go up gears. It's missing downshifts. I get a false neutral. What is happening? I went from like top privateer, and by the time I got to turn 7, I'm like 3/4 of the way back in the pack, struggling to get the bike to shift. We go into the turn 9 chicane on the first lap and false neutral. The bike won't even go anywhere. I think I was between like 4th and 5th, but it felt just like, so my head's down, my just depressed. I slide off the track. I go into the weeds next to the tire bars, and that's the end of the race, right? I see everyone else is going, and I'm hitting the shifter with my foot, and click, it goes in. Here comes the decision that I never should have made. I never should, but never surrender, right? It's a big weekend. I was really proud to be out there, and I came to race. So I got a bike that works. I'm going to race. So I pull back out of the dirt, around the tires, get back on the track, and if the field is in turn 7 and there's 13 turns, I'm at turn 1. Like, I'm half the track away. But I'm going to go get him. Oh, yeah, this is going to happen. And certainly, if everything went great, I would have caught the back of the pack and passed a few people, whatever that's worth. But I wouldn't have come in last because the Superbike races are long, like 20 whatever laps. So there I go. And 2 laps later, riding by myself, I come through the turn that when I first moved to California and my first time I saw Sears Point, I went around on like a scooter. And when I passed this turn like 10, I think it was turn 10, it's this sweeping right-hand turn that has a wall on the outside of it, a NASCAR wall with hay bales and air fences. Thankfully, John Flory, Road Racing World, had brought air fence in to line that wall because it was wicked dangerous, right? This sweeping right-hand turn that you're powering through. There was no apron. There was no like dirt area. If you blew the turn, there was a wall. So danger. I throw it into that right, and the bike like didn't shift properly. And I like hesitate, and all of a sudden it kicks into gear and downshifted, locked the rear tire, and threw me over the handlebars right towards the wall. That on that first time around with the scooter, and like I eyed up Sears Point, I looked at that turn and I said, this is the one place I do not want to crash. I'm going to promise myself I'm never going to crash here. I crashed right there at full speed, launched in a high side, worst kind of crash, and now I'm high sided and I'm going to go into a concrete wall with air fence in front of it. So it was a mess. I remember when I finally stopped tumbling and falling and everything scraping and crashing, all I saw was yellow and it was soaking wet. Very weird experience. So the yellow that I saw when I didn't lose consciousness, but I was, black, white, everything's going all over the place. The yellow was the sunlight coming through the vinyl of the air fence. I was underneath, inside the air fence, and the water, what I was soaked with, was the water that had accumulated in the tire barrier that was behind the air fence. I hit the tire so hard that the water exploded and covered me all over like this. So the bike was destroyed. The race was over. But honestly, did I have to destroy the bike to determine that the race was over? What about my injuries? Like, did I have to break my arm or, break my neck, God forbid? No, I didn't have to do any of those things. Luckily, I didn't break anything. I have to do a video soon about Vanson Leathers because I'm not going to turn this into an advertisement, but when you get into a wreck like that, when you lose control of a bike and you're falling and I don't mean just lose control of a bike, I mean like lose control of your body also, like your trajectory. Like, when you lose touch with the bike and you're in crash mode, the first thought is, what's my scenery? I know there was a tree somewhere. I got to make sure I don't hit that tree. I know there was a fire hydrant. I know there was, in this case, a concrete wall, right? So there's nothing I can do about that. So at that point, the first thought that goes through your mind is, I fucked up. God, I disrespected my life. I put myself in this position, and I don't know what else to say, but maybe you can help me out because I have no control of this anymore. Well, that's where Vanson, I always think of Vanson Leathers. Their leather is, I'll do a video about it because it's fascinating stuff. It's so strong. I have 7 crashes on my last set of leathers, never been repaired once. Never had any kind of injuries once from these leathers. They're remarkable. So I thought about my leathers as I go into the wall, like, I don't know what drives them to be so good and work so hard at protecting you, but thank God. So I went in and I came out. I didn't even have a bruise, nothing. But it could have been really disastrous. But the question is, why? Why did I decide to keep going? Why, when I went off the track and said, well, the transmission's not working, I false neutral, like obviously I can't race. Why first of all did I try to click it in? And when it did go in, why did I decide to go out? Never surrender, right? It's a great attitude, it's honorable and all this stuff, but sometimes it's just plain stupid. And I was plain stupid. I don't know if you can learn from that lesson. I think you probably can, but let me give you this next story, and this you might relate to even closer. This is not 2005, which is 20 years ago. This is 1 year ago, not even 1 year ago, 8 months ago. It's the beginning of last season, and I spoke about this a little bit. I put a video up, then I was threatened. I had to take it down, all this crap. I had a problem. I had a mechanical problem with my Gen 3 1290 Super Duke in the first day of practice. Actually, the first lap of the first practice of the whole year. I got to turn 3, and that bike was with the throttle like, come on, let's go. And it died, poof, come back, poof, jump. So immediately by turn 3, and you're not even going fast when you go through turn 1 and 2, you're just kind of blending in to, okay, I'm going around the track again. You're not doing, by turn 3, okay, you start to accelerate a little bit and you're starting to feel your oats. Well, I was feeling disaster, like, don't, like this. So immediately I put my hand up, I stood up on the bike, I pulled to the side and not coasted, but, I was off pace and went around and I pulled off the track because I thought, well, obviously something's wrong with the bike, right? But what is it? I don't know what it is. So I'm going to go back to the pits and look really quick, see if I can salvage what's going on, because I had one motorcycle to race the whole weekend, and it's the first race of the year. And there's one thing in racing that you don't want to do is get a 0. And if you pull out Saturday morning, you get 4 zeros. You're already, it didn't even have the second practice yet, and I'm already behind in the points in all the championships that I'm in. It's a disaster. So I pull into my pit, and I think, what do I have access to that I can fix this as quick as possible so I can get back out there, right? Gas, right? Fuel. Maybe that's it. So I pop the cap and I look and I move the bike back and forth, and there was gas. There was gas. Maybe, and it wasn't full. It wasn't even half full. But I know that bike. I know how much gas it takes. I know how much it takes to do 1 lap. I know how much it takes to do 8 laps. I've got it all down. I've ridden their bike for 4 years. I raced that bike already. So I heard it sloshing around. I knew there was gas there. But I was thinking, maybe when I leaned like this, it was running out of gas. That's why the on-off like this. So I grabbed the can. I top it off. Not top it off, but, I put another 1.5 gallons in there, which is usually all I ever put in to start with. Close the cap, and I go out. In so much time that it was still practice 1. There was still time left. So I roll out, and I go through turn 3, and boom, But this time, when it died, I'm leaned like this. And when it dies, the bike fell into the turn like this and pow, exploded back to life with power. A Super Duke has pretty great traction control. Not when this happens. As soon as that thing exploded back with power, it just spun the rear, whacked, the bike went sideways, and I flew, I don't know how high, because I have no memories of it, because I landed on my head. And I have no memories until hours later. They found me unconscious in the middle of the track. And I had broken ribs and severe trauma to my head. So I'm in the hospital for a while, not days. I just, for a few hours, they stabilized me and sent me back to the track. And the next 2 weeks of my life, all I did, every time, vertical was okay. But as soon as I lied down, not only, you talk about room spinning, it was different than that. Not only was the room spinning, but it felt like I could feel the force of being spun in like a centrifuge or something. Like I could feel the centrifugal force, even though I wasn't even moving. So spinning like this, like somebody was whipping me by my feet and falling through space. So what's that going to make you do? Besides yell in the middle of the night, yelling, I'm going to sick, I'm going to throw up, right? Because, it's in an amusement park and this crazy ass ride. But I can't sit up. It takes me a half hour just to roll to my side because my ribs are severely broken and so painful. God help me if I ever sneezed. Bring me to the emergency room. That kind of pain. So I can't get up to go throw up. I'm night after night throwing up on the floor because I can't get to the bathroom. And the violence of things spinning. So horrible experience. How do we learn from this? How do you learn from my screw up? And what is my screw up? My screw up is I knew. Did I really think it was the gas? Did I really think I was out of gas? I don't buy that. I think that's me bullshitting myself. I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to give up the weekend. It was never surrender. I'm going to find a way. What do you mean find a way? I know what was wrong now. Something was wrong with the tune that was put in to my bike. I know it because the mechanic that I have more respect for of anywhere in America, and I know this guy Alex, he's always worked on my race bikes for like 10 years. He took out the tune, he put in the anchor tune from the dealership, and the bike is brilliant. Perfect. So obviously we know what it was. But how was I gonna fix that? Like, there was no way I could fix that myself. What am I gonna do? Rewire the bike? What I should have done when it came in was say, this practice is over. I'm gonna go walk around the pits and talk to some key mechanics and see if I can figure out if there's something I can do. That's what I should have done. But it's not what I did. Because I didn't want to give up. Never surrender. Go get him. Never say die. Sometimes you should say die. That was my time. So there's two lessons here, particularly with this story. I don't care what bike you ride. You might have one of these aftermarket tunes that was put in your bike. Well, I did a lot of research on this, and there's things that can happen when you transfer files. I don't care whose device it is. I don't care what product. It doesn't matter. When you take files from one device and put them onto another device, whether it's via Wi-Fi, whether it's via Bluetooth, whether it's via a cable, whether it's someone emailed it to you, bits of data, all these ones and zeros, millions of these things, it all has to kind of get disassembled, sent through, and then reassembled on this end. And if one of those bits turns into an O instead of a 1, if the file is corrupt. So things like this happen. It's a known thing. That's what I thought happened originally. That's what I was told at the racetrack happened, and that's what we found out that happened from Alex. And I'll speak on it now freely to say that it's proven that's what happened. But you can use this to your own benefit by keeping in mind my experience. So if you feel like something's off, right? If you do something to your bike, you do one of these aftermarket things, and something's off, especially the on-off thing, realize, please, how dangerous that is. Dangerous, like it could kill you. So don't just power through things like that. I'll never surrender. Don't, like, I'm going to make it through the weekend. I don't care if you drove 6 hours to Hockenheim racetrack, wherever you are in the world. It doesn't matter. 6 hours. Doesn't matter. Turn around and drive 6 hours home. If there's something like that that's wrong, find someone at the track to fix it. Find a mechanic locally if you're doing street rides. Get it fixed. Don't ride through it anyway. Don't be a hero and force the issue. Because forcing shit, trust me, I've learned this the hard way, is a great way to get yourself hurt. I did it at Sears Point. I forced the issue. I'm going to make it happen anyway. Never surrender. And could have killed me. Literally, easily could have killed me. But didn't. I survived. So here I am sharing the story with you so it doesn't kill you either. The aftermarket flash things, be wary. Be wary that files can get corrupt when they transfer from one thing to another. It happens. Doesn't matter whose thing it is or what it is. It can happen. It could be data from a memory card across the cable to your computer from your camera. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is. Happens all the time. So, how do you know? How do you know? The thing is, you got to be honest with yourself, because you know already. You know. You just got to pause. Take the measure of the situation and weigh, like, what am I going to benefit from pressing on versus what am I going to lose? This is the equation that you have to do. Take Sears Point. I'm on the side of the track and the thing clicks into gear. I should have stopped right there and said, okay, what am I going to gain by racing through this whole race with a broken transmission versus what am I going to lose by trying to race through this thing with a broken transmission? If I was honest with myself and I was responsible, I would have said, you stand to lose a lot more than you stand to gain. Shut it off. What I should have done at Buttonwillow, when the bike was running like this, I should have said, what am I going to benefit? Like, if I continue on with this practice, with the bike going like this, what am I going to get out of this practice? Am I going to learn something? Nothing. Going to learn nothing from this. But you could do a really good job of killing yourself, which, of course, that's the one I did, right? So when you get into a situation where there's a problem, especially one that could be dangerous to your body and to your bike, to other people, weigh the situation. Weigh it. Take a moment and be honest with yourself and be truthful and be genuine and be responsible and say, is there more benefit if I continue or more danger? Simple answer, right? The trick is not really knowing the difference of that. The trick is listening to yourself, being smart enough, and knowing when to quit. I'm Gogo for superduked.com. I hope that this helps you not make some of the mistakes that I have made, because they hurt a lot.